Whoa, what's wrong with bottom omega?
Your charm about bottom omega.
Chris, we inhabit very different corners of the internet sometimes.
Possibly, yes. Welcome to the stream.
And that's all I will say on the matter of bottom omega.
What's wrong with bottom omega? I don't understand. Charmed Omega, that was a good series of that show. Hi.
I'm not gonna tell you, so you don't know.
This is very much a ask your parents type moment.
Don't ask your parents. If your parents know, I'm concerned.
Hey, you know, world wise people. Kiro is scared. Hi, Kiro. Hope you're doing well.
Mechanics.
And you missed a lot of sewers yesterday. So don't worry about it.
Yeah, don't.
Also, Chibi's infinitely replicating knives. Chibi has infinite knives now.
You did miss my infinitely replicating knives, yes.
I might be letting more. I might know more than I'm letting on. How dare you?
More concerning infinitely replicating knives that also are bombs.
Yeah, they do explode. That is a thing.
I think I killed myself with those knives more often than I killed anything else.
Such is the way sometimes.
Yeah, there's an adage in self-defense where it's like don't use a self-defense item that you're not prepared to have used against you, because basically if you bring a knife to a fight, you have now brought a knife to a fight, and it may not be used by you. But usually that just means it's like, hey, if you are using a taser, make sure you understand how that feels in case you get tased with it. Not the knife has now exploded in your face.
Yeah. Exploding knives, pretty concerning, I'd say.
Somewhat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just generally speaking, you know.
Welcome to Via. Where the exploding knives are commonplace. That's the upgrade you get if you finish the Mafia questline.
Yes. That is true. That is factual now.
Say hello to my little friend. Anything can be used against you, even your own weapon. Yes. And you. And the air. I don't know anything about self-defense. Right. What? Hi. We're here for the 23rd time.
23rd century.
It's the 20th of the Duck Dodgers, not Buck Rogers. I went to the Looney Tunes parody first, not the original.
That's a fair nod. Waiting to happen.
I mean, to be fair, I think at this point most people are more familiar with the Looney Tunes parody.
Mm.
It's like with the whole like Bugs Bunny eating on the carrot thing is actually not a comment on rabbits eat carrots. It's a reference to an actor of the time who I don't even remember his name because obviously he's not as well known anymore. I just know that it's a reference to someone who was a famous actor at the time.
Yeah. And Yogi Bear was named that because of Yogi Berra, who was a baseball player, I think.
Did he love picnic baskets? That's the important thing.
I'd sincerely hope so. Yeah, sometimes... Oh, hello. Is that a bud cat?
I attempt at a butt cat. I don't know if I want to call it that, but you know.
Ooh, we also have a little shroom cat.
You had me zoom out with that, you know. I had to look at butt cat.
There's a pun here involving the word cap and cat for the mushroom one. I'm not sure exactly how to do it.
Yeah, just leave it as an IKEA joke. Someone will figure it out.
Yeah, there you go. That's the start. That one's not. That one's not even an IKEA joke. That one is like, you know, here is the concept of wood.
I've never heard
You
that
know?
term before. IKEA joke.
That's because I made it up once.
Oh.
Where I'm just like, I've got the constituent parts for a joke, but I haven't actually put it into the form of a joke, so I'll just tell you the parts and you can work it out yourself. That's my IKEA joke.
I think there was at least one stream where I was only making IKEA jokes because just like
Sometimes you just
of
need
jokes, but I couldn't make them.
Oh yeah, I've got to put on the background music. Hey Ziggy.
Anyway, I've been painting Buddy all day, so I don't know how much
Hooray.
use I'm gonna be.
So I've been playing Hollow Knight. So yeah, we've been talking in the last few streams about how to actually string all these ideas together into a narrative, and into a structure that makes sense for the game. Yes, we are actually starting to create some sort of adherent source for the spaghetti.
Maybe
Yeah.
some recipes in there.
Oh, funny. Oh. Technology, stop doing things. Yeah. So, and was the last time we were talking about? Oh, the actual progression of locations in the game. And
Yeah.
Yeah, we were talking about how areas get unlocked.
yeah,
And
And
Because now
mechanics.
it is
yeah, mechanics
open
for each place.
worlds. You still have to sort of get into places.
And yeah, how each place that you can sort of do something will, if you do the bad thing, as it were, then that adds a phase onto the Fame and Fortune fight, which is related to the thing, which includes a dress-up game.
Yes. Probably important to mention the dress-up game.
That's the most important thing we talked about.
Honestly.
Yeah.
And Lewis isn't here to contradict us.
Yep. That's what he gets for flying to the other side of the planet. We've turned his monumental, melancholic, brooding, big place full of horrible people in armor into a dress-up game. There's nothing he can do about it. Except complain.
I mean, why would he? Why
Dunno.
would he complain? What possible thing could he have to complain about, Chris?
Nothing whatsoever.
Exactly.
So yeah, I honestly can't remember what prompt we got. So still just thinking about how to put it all together, really. Items. Was it items?
Yeah, items.
Did we roll last week? My
Yeah, we
brain.
Yeah,
did.
but-
It was items.
Okay.
I think we did it right at the end of the stream.
Yeah.
Because we were like, oh god.
And we didn't talk about it. At all.
Well, I do have a post in the Discord.
Yep.
That says this
That's-
week items.
that's where I get my
for that
information
day,
from.
So obviously it happens.
We have a reliable correspondent, Ragdoll, as usual. Noting down all of the important information. But yeah. I don't know if we want to do that, or we want to talk about how the thing all starts to fit together again more. I was considering doing like just an actual, doodling the game from start to finish sort of thing. As a draw through tends to be. Which is why I called this stream part 23 the beginning.
Appropriate.
Yes, I will doodle from the start. Because why not?
Doodle from the start.
Doodle from the start. I keep forgetting how to use Aggie. I've been trying to think of items, but your mind's been empty. Still thinking that. Again, this is week 23. We've thrown a lot of ideas into this. I wouldn't panic if we don't have any more ideas to put in.
Yeah, I mean, well, in this little draw through, we'll come across problems naturally.
Yeah.
And then we might find an item to solve them with.
More MacGuffins.
MacGuffins!
That belongs in a museum.
I guess the first thing that happens is we get the mysterious voices, right? There's sort of hazy blackness, and then there's the voices of what turns out to be life and death talking.
Yeah. Those would be the first things.
I don't know what they say, so I'm just going to do sort of dots and squiggles.
Yeah, fair enough.
What did they say? Something along the lines of like, you haven't finished, you're not ready. Something, I don't know.
Something.
Or is that what they say when you die?
Trying to think of the right wording for this. I should also stop painting. We're streaming.
There you do you.
I cannot remember what we decided on.
I mean, whatever it is, it's definitely mysterious and only makes sense when you have context from later in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a thing where it's like, oh, this only makes sense after you've done a new game plus and you have sort of an idea of what might be talking.
It was something like along the lines of death, saying that you're not supposed to be here. That's it. Like the idea of like you've passed over, but you're not supposed to be there yet, because death's been busy and you're supposed to fix things. You're not supposed to be dead. Go back. So something along those lines of. And I think like the "not supposed to be here yet" is like a phrase that keeps like returning when you like die.
Yeah.
But I assume it's also like at the start of the game. Along with probably some vague stuff, like maybe you're overhearing like a conversation between life and death.
Yeah, I've done sort of vague, wispy sort of silhouettes of life and death, which obviously you don't know what it is when you start. It's just vague, wispy shapes. And then you wake up in a cave next to a pool of blood.
Wake up in a cave.
And unlike in Kingdom Hearts, it's not going to take 6.5 games for us to get the context of what the mysterious voice is.
No. It'll definitely feel like it's been 6.5 games, but...
That's a different matter altogether, you know?
Classic question mark face. I don't know what you're wearing when you wake up.
Of course it's a question mark face. You haven't done your character creator yet.
Wait, so hang on, in the game, before you get to the character creator, wherever that is, do you have to play as a character who actually has a question mark for a face?
Yes. Absolutely, yes.
Nice.
See, I was just saying we haven't drawn out the box with the character creator in it yet, but that's also funny.
I mean, weirdly, Dark Souls 2 does that. There's a little bit of gameplay in Dark Souls 2 before you get to the character creator. And you just sort of play as generic character covered in robes. But it does mean that, you know, you do get to choose things like your height and things like that. That's just going to change when you get into that building. So...
Your soul hasn't settled down yet, so the body is still just a question mark.
To be fair, there's a sort of vaguely mystical, esoteric reason in Dark Souls, but...
How do I draw
Whatever.
inky cap mushrooms?
Surely you don't draw them, you stamp them.
Good idea for. I hope inky cap is in the Shroomtober. I hope I haven't missed it.
Well, the great thing about these challenges is if you've missed it, you can do it later. Like,
Yeah.
there are no referees or anything.
I just like doing like this mushroom on this day and stuff. I need like some kind of what's it called? Structure to be able to do this. I have missed a couple of days though.
That's fine.
Like I missed last Sunday because I've been with my family a lot and growing mushrooms and fishies for some reason. So I'm sorry, I'm a bit preoccupied.
No worries. Drawing's about having fun.
Yeah.
Well, it should be.
Fun. I command you.
It's about having fun. It's about owning it, controlling it.
Exactly.
I'm just gonna have the character sort of covered in rags, because I don't know.
Feels
Starting
appropriate.
Starting off with full frontal nudity seems a bit weird.
Yeah, a little bit.
This game is now rated AO.
For AO, let's go. Hey, oh, let's go. I assume people don't know that song.
I
Bloody
am
English
aware of it,
songs.
though I couldn't tell you what any of the rest of it sounds like.
General punk. Like that. Pretty much. And now I'm confusing it in my head with Mirror in the Bathroom by UB40. Which is an actual song. Yeah, don't panic or worry. Only fun is allowed. Kiro has
Really fun.
Kiro has decreed only fun. It's like that Twilight Zone episode. If you're not happy,
Take your joy.
oh yeah, I bought that game. I'm gonna play it on stream, and then everything happened like October. So look forward to that at some point in the next 2 years. Anywho, anatomy notwithstanding, we wake up in cave. Yeah, and then you do tutorial. Basic control tutorial, which there's probably a wizard around to tell you the basic controls.
Yeah, so we've got some tutorial that's very explicitly tutorial, like Buff Wizard for some reason is here.
To tell you how to punch.
I mean, it might make sense if there's just like a couple of wizards that are hanging out in the caves because wizard nonsense things.
Yeah, they probably are.
So you've got like 2 or 3 different wizards showing you the ropes, potentially literally. So you have Buff Wizard who's here to beat your ass.
They had the tutorial boss.
Bird's nest fungi really does have eggs.
Good for it.
That's cringe.
Fungi be like that sometimes.
They're weird.
I mean, I for one am quite happy for the first boss of this game to be Buff Wizard.
Yeah, that's fair. He is tutorial boss. You're gonna have to fight him. You won't win, probably.
It's going to be one of those fights where it's essentially a survive this amount of time, and or like the tutorial fights where you're learning how to do a move. Like it only moves on to the next round, as it were, when you successfully do a thing.
I like the idea that Buff Wizard's like, oh, if we explore this world more, perhaps we can have a rematch. This is an indicator of, like, later on you'll be more powerful and you can fight him, but you'll still lose. Like, you can rematch him later with all the most powerful stuff in the world. No. You will lose.
Is Buff Wizard God?
No, Buff Wizard is just buff and a wizard. It's a terrifying combination.
Honestly, yeah.
The worst combination of jock and nerd.
Kind of.
Jerd. Or Nork.
I don't like either of those options, can't be honest.
You Nork.
The Jerds and the Norks.
Now this sounds like sci-fi races.
It does, right?
Yeah.
Or fantasy races, one of the two. Or both. There's a fine line dividing between the two, and it's hard to define it nicely.
Fantasy, sci-fi is largely space fantasy, but with an overt description of technology. In the same way that horror has an overt description of banisters. I could have just gone with furniture, but I specifically went with banisters.
Yeah, I don't know why you specifically went with banisters.
I don't know. It's just the sort of thing that they would focus on, you know? I've read a lot of poems.
I mean, I'm just thinking of Les Miserables, where part of the reason why the book is so thick is because there's whole sections in there just talking about the sewer system in France.
To be fair, the sewer system in France is actually quite interesting. It exactly mirrors the streets in Paris. So if you knew the street layout in Paris, you could traverse the sewers exactly the same. It's kind of interesting.
Oh yeah, it's just that usually, I mean, it's one thing to describe a thing that you're interacting with. It's another thing to go into the in-depth history, and it's like, okay, why are we going into this much description of this one world-building thing? There's sewers. We're traveling through them. Move on.
That immediately makes me think of Picture of Dorian Gray, Oscar Wilde. There is an entire chapter in that, which is it's explicitly that nothing happens in it, but it is just Oscar Wilde wrote down all the things he liked. Like all the fabrics and jewels and clothes, and he just made a list of perfumes and food, everything that he just really liked, and he turned it into a chapter of the main character saying, "These are all the things I like."
He made a Pinterest board.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, pretty much. And it goes into so much like minute detail of like this specific type of velvet, you know, and again. Nothing happens in this chapter. It is just the main character talking about their indulgences.
That's really funny.
And that was so strange reading that.
But also,
this is a horror,
reminded.
Right?
I'm reminded. So, granted, The Princess Bride is a comedy, but there's a chapter in that book that is explicitly anti that. So the framing of the Princess Bride novel is basically, it's like a person, the author, quote unquote, is sitting here going, right, I'm going to transcribe down to the best of my knowledge this story that was told to me as a youth from my grandpa, and like an annotated type thing. And there's one chapter, quote unquote, where, and I don't remember the exact phrasing of it, but basically at the start of the chapter it says, at this part of the book there's an entire chapter going into the history of Sir Humperdinck's family line, royal family, whatnot, but it's boring, so I'm going to leave it out.
I admire the honesty.
I hope they were truly called Humperdinck.
Yeah, that's the name of the prince and the princess bride, Sir Humperdinck.
Seriously?
What's wrong with Humperdinck? It did Engelbert no harm.
I mean, he's the villain, so he's done plenty of harm, but...
Engelbert Humperdinck is not a villain. How dare you? Hang on, I want to look something up. Yeah, I thought so. I wanted to check. I didn't think Engelbert Humperdinck's name was actually Engelbert Humperdinck, and it wasn't. He chose that name. His name was Arnold Dorsey.
I know stage names and whatnot, pseudonyms are a thing, but I'm just sort of sitting here wondering why?
Yeah, that's what I'm looking up now.
I mean, it's memorable.
Yeah.
Yeah, but his real name isn't, like, common either, so I don't know. Oh yeah, Kira brings up, there's another section where they pull the same joke of like, and here's a chapter where we're talking all about packing bags, but it's boring, so I'm skipping it. Just so much shade about long, drawn-out descriptions of inconsequential things.
Ah, okay. So apparently there was a German composer in the 19th century called Engelbert Humperdinck. He made the opera Hansel and Gretel. And the modern singer Engelbert Humperdinck, just 10 years into trying to get into show business, thought, I need to change my name. That's a good name. Let's take that. There you go.
Sure.
Again, specifically why that, I don't know. What are you gonna do?
I guess you gotta pick something.
Well, yeah, but like...
But yeah, that's...
You could take, you know, like when... It's like David Tennant. Like his name is like... Is it David Mackay or something like that?
Wait, that's not his name?
Yeah, but his name, because there's a thing in... is it just in Britain? There's a thing like a register of all actors, and in order to avoid double booking or booking the wrong actor, everybody has to have a different name. So if there's already an actor with your name, you change your name professionally. MacDonald, yes. David John MacDonald.
Oh, that's boring.
I mean, this is pretty standard for a Scotsman.
I mean, Tennant.
Yeah, he got that from some pop person. He was really flipping through like a music magazine. I was like, I like that name. I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, the lead singer of the Pet Shop Boys, Neil Tennant.
I say it's boring because I've heard the name before, and I've only ever heard Tennant from David Tennant.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Oh, okay, that's interesting. So it seems like you have the opposite problem in America.
What?
Okay, so there's an actors union called Equity in Britain, and part of that is making sure everybody has a different name. But apparently the Screen Actors Guild in America means you can't have more than one name, so he had to change his name to Tennant legally in order to be part of the Screen Actors Guild in America. So he is now legally David Tennant because of a conflict of rules in different actors unions in different countries.
That's really funny.
There you go.
I wasn't aware that was a thing.
Me neither. I knew about the equity one. I didn't know about the Screen Actors Guild. How strange.
Anyway, Via,
yes. So you get out the cave, you've done your little tutorial area, and you come across a friendly lizard with a van.
Yeah. Oh, mail carrier.
I don't know what's funnier, if it's like the fantasy van caravan thing that is obviously built to be able to go through caves, or if it's just like a mail truck.
Just a mail truck, I think.
Yeah, just a mail truck.
Because you start this game by vague, mysterious shadows with voices that say mysterious things, and then you wake up in a mysterious cave with a blood pool, floor soup, question mark.
You don't know what it is, but your character just drank it, that's all you know.
Yeah. And there's wizards there, and the wizards are mostly there for tutorial, but still it implements the idea of like, oh, this is high fantasy, basically.
And then you have a lizard car.
Yeah, just a van with a post lizard, and I don't know what I would think at that point. At that point, I would just be, oh, okay, it's gonna be this kind of game, where I just have no idea what's going on.
Like, I mean, it runs on the blood soup. So it doesn't run on petrol or anything, so clearly it's fantasy, you know?
Yeah. There's a little floor soup tank petrol station.
It's just a little gnome by a puddle, siphoning it off. The issue with this idea is that I did have to attempt to draw a van. It's not easy.
I mean, it's a fantasy van, it could be anything.
A fantasy.
But would it be harder to draw a mail truck or a horse pulling the mail truck?
Horse. The horse is the driver. Horse drives the van.
Which is very impressive because they don't have thumbs.
You don't need thumbs to turn a wheel. You just put your hooves into the specially made hoof cuffs of the steering wheel.
We're cuffing the horse to the car?
Well, cuffs like a shirt cuff, that kind of thing, but...
Okay, interesting.
I'm just saying, if you have a van that a horse regularly drives, you're not going to design it for human hands, are you?
Oh yeah, that's true.
It would be frankly offensive.
I like how you say this as if it's a reasonable thing to be saying.
What do you mean? You're implying anything here is not reasonable.
I mean, I immediately went like, yeah, that's fine, but it is a weird thing to say.
Oh, I see. You're the anti-horse equality. I get it.
No, I just think Ragdoll's smarter than I am.
This is why so few horses nowadays drive vehicles.
I mean,
Because of these sort of backwards policies, like not making steering wheels for hooves.
Is that why?
Yeah. Well, have you seen a horse driving a van?
Not recently.
There
no.
you go. There you go.
I mean, most horses that I have met, if they see a van, they're just going to try and spontaneously break their own legs, because that's just what horses do whenever there's anything large around.
They just get so angry that they're not designed with them in mind, you know?
Get so angry they break their own legs.
Never been so angry you break your own legs.
Only once or twice.
And then have to be put down because, you know.
It got darker.
Okay, so we hitch a ride on the mail cart to the harbor. Because that's sort of the hub, as it were.
I mean, it's where they need to get the mail from.
Yeah, that's also where they get the mail from. It's literally the mail hub.
Yeah.
There was probably at least one mini game involving that.
Oh yeah. You can definitely immediately get on that mini game spree by just sorting mail. If you wanted to.
Just help the mail lizard get their job done by sorting mail.
That could be the entire game if you wanted to.
Didn't we say that that was a mini game you had to do like while the fast travel was happening in the back of the van?
Oh yeah.
Although that doesn't actually give you anything. That's just you need to do that in order for the fast travel.
That's just your job now.
Yeah.
It's the game devs giving you something to do while it loads the next section of the game.
Yeah. And the loading screens are monumental. So
I believe the trademark on having mini games and loading screens has expired, so you can do those now.
Hooray!
Yay.
So problem with this mini game is it gives you something to do while the loading happens. Unfortunately, if you play the game for a certain amount of time, it has to load new textures for letters, and that interrupts the loading that's currently happening. And so it has to start the loading again. And it doesn't tell you any of this. So if you're good enough at the game, it load indefinitely. It's a bug. It never got patched out. That's, got space. Okay, van acquired. To the city. What's the first thing that happens when you arrive in the harbour town?
I mean, we did talk about Christie's...
Wasn't there like that wine ant?
Yeah, wine ant.
Oh yeah.
Leads you around.
Tugs you around, like...
Oh yeah. I was thinking the insect ant. I got confused.
Yeah. Aunt.
Yeah, nah. Auntie.
And it is said like that, yes.
Just showing you around the harbor town, drinking the apparently bottomless goblet of wine.
That was her PhD thesis. And she's still, quote, studying, unquote, it.
Yeah. And she's giving you a quote-unquote tutorial. How useful the tutorial is, you know, entirely up to the player. I mean, I don't know what the player is gonna do with knowledge on Wine Auntie's fifth husband, but, you know, might be useful.
There's a quiz halfway through the game.
their fifth husband who ran away with their sixth wife.
Yeah.
Impressive.
Yeah,
There
you
is-
need to take notes to be able to like, get all of this.
There is
We'll be
a
on the quiz later.
enemy. I don't really call them an enemy. They don't attack you. But there is an encounter you can have in Final Fantasy IX, which is with something called the Ragtime Mouse. I don't know why it's called the Ragtime Mouse. It doesn't look like a mouse at all. But it just asks you trivia about the game's history. And if you get it right, you get a prize. And if you don't, bad luck. Try again next time. And that just happens when you're wandering around the world. It just comes up to you and goes, "Hey, do you want a quiz? Who was the 10th Queen of Lindblom?" So what?
Well, it's a way to get lore.
Oh, let me look at the questions. Some of them are really obscure.
Doesn't the new Monkey Island have a thing where you've got like quiz cards with trivia? Some in game, some out of game. Yeah, stuff like that's always sort of fun and strange.
But yeah, the 15th Lindblom War started in 1600. True or false? Ah, what? I don't even know what year it is now in this game.
Well, you gotta figure it out.
It's the year 7B.
Lindblom Castle is larger than Alexandria Castle. I can't explore the whole thing. It's literally like a tiny little model on the world map, and then a few screens that I can traverse inside. How am I supposed to know which one's bigger?
Is it one of the things where it's like you have to listen to every farmer and...
Oh yeah. Someone somewhere says this. Some of these, to be fair, that makes sense, but they're spoilers, so I won't say. But also, yeah, the more I look at Ragtime Mouse, the more I'm like, what are you?
Ragtime Mouse.
There's
Yeah,
not
I don't
spoilers.
see-
This is not relevant to. Yeah, this is spoilers. But what is this?
What? I mean, that's. I'm pretty sure that's the cousin of the Pokemon Blacephalon.
Blacephalon?
The clown one. The clown disco ball.
Oh, that thing. That's not a Pokemon. That's a that's one of those
Oh, that thing, yeah.
beasts from another dimension.
Yeah, dimension.
I
beast.
mean,
What are
you
those
know,
stupid things called?
Ultra Beast.
Ultra Beasts.
Stealth Pokemon.
Ultra Beast. There we go.
It's just got a similar
Yeah,
vibe.
explicitly not a Pokemon.
Well, Pokemon is a very, very, very wide branch. A wide category.
You need a different kind of ball to catch it. That's not a Pokeball. It's not a Pokemon.
Well, yeah, but if we're going to say that the platypus isn't an animal, because it doesn't fit in any of the categories we've got at the moment. It does its own thing, that's fine. It appears to have the wondrous ability to freely remove its own head and make it explode. Great.
Dope.
To one, right?
Thanks, Pokedex. Remember those quiz battles, they are fun, yeah. Also, as an added slight confusion, this is a Japanese game, Final Fantasy IX, going back to the Ragtime Mouse. And all of the questions are true or false. And the way you answer is there are two other enemies, or things, in the battle. One of them is a floating cross, for false, and one of them is a floating circle. Because in Japan, circle means yes. At least as far as the PlayStation controller is concerned, the circle button is the confirm one and the X is the cancel one, but then over here that wasn't the case, so... It's all confusing.
Doesn't sound confusing at all.
It's fine. Don't worry about it.
Good, I'm not.
There was a reference picture without the feet, so I'm gonna have to make up the feet.
Invent feet!
Invent feet.
No,
Christy's
I
inventing
can't
feet.
invent feet.
Invent feet, you can do it!
No.
You can do it, Christy. We believe in you.
It's a square. There we go.
That's feet.
Invent a foots. It's a foots.
I mean,
Oh.
a foot's more like a wedge, but
Yeah, every time I try to do that, it just looks wrong.
It's tricky to get the hang of, and I'm approximately 30% of the way there. But, the controls are reversed. I've gotten used at this point in Final Fantasy games to just keep the controls the way they usually are, with circle being yes. But when you switch games, it gets a bit confusing. So
I mean, it doesn't help that with like your Nintendo controllers, it's usually A for confirm, B for go back. And those buttons are in the 4-button situation with a lot of Nintendo controllers where they've got the A, B, X, and Y. The A and B are usually in the exact opposite locations of the X and O from your PlayStation controllers, which doesn't help.
well, yeah, they're in the same configuration as they would be if you took circle to be confirm and X to be cancel. It's just that for some reason, when localizing most games over here, they decided to swap that round because we thought X would be yes. I don't know.
X will always be yes to me because I grew up with PlayStation.
Yeah, same. Like, I remember the very first time I tried to play Final Fantasy VII as a kid, I got really, really frustrated because circle was confirmed. I was like, no, it's broken.
Oh.
And then I eventually worked out how to change it, so never had to worry again.
That's well done that you figured that out.
I may well not be doing this right now if that wasn't the case, given that, you know, these draw-throughs started with Final Fantasy VII. We may well be doing something more productive with our lives. Who knows?
More productive? Why?
I don't know. So I'm imagining when you arrive at the harbour town, like, Male Lizard is literally in the process of going, okay, well, if you go over there, there's a shop where you can buy, mid-sentence, Wynart comes along, grabs your arm and goes, so anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Like, Male Lizard was about to give you actual useful information of where you could buy, you know, gear and weapons and stuff. And then Wynant just came in and started talking, you know, about whatever came to her mind. You have no choice but to go along with it.
You're being dragged.
People are like, oh, thank God, I'm finally out of the tutorial area.
Yeah. Yeah, true. Finally out of tutorial area. Even though the tutorial area wasn't that long, it was essentially the wizard just being, these are the buttons for punching. Now fight me. And that's it. But then why not comes along. So you're thinking, oh, that was a nice, quick tutorial session.
You walk up to the buff wizard and he's like, press this button to punch. You press the button, you punch the wizard. It's like, you punched me, get ready to fight.
Our eyes have locked. Time to battle.
Yeah, it's just the music just cuts out and they squint. And then fight music starts.
It's interesting, like, because what would be once Wine Aunt is finally done talking about all her entire family history. And how that somewhat relates to the town, but not really. Is that when you're, like, free to go explore, essentially?
I guess, after you've been roped into getting rid of the rat in her basement.
It's the rat in her basement, that's the one.
It's not a regular rat.
Yeah, no, it's the ever-leveling rat. The rat that progresses with you.
So, question: are we still in default face at this time, or did we, or is there some character creation tutorial with a wizard sometime after Buff Wizard beats you up?
Yeah, I assume so. I assume, like, once Buff Wizard has beaten you up, there's been, like, a section of, now you can make your face, and it's a wizard actually stitching your face together, essentially.
Oh, that would be dope.
We had to reconstruct your face because Buff Wizard punched most of it off.
Just a wizard that comes up to you after the fight of, ooh, you don't look good. Here, let me help you. And that's why you're stuck with the character creator. You look awful.
A lot of this game is gonna be very detrimental to our characters. What's it
Everything.
called? Confidence.
Yeah.
Just existence.
I mean, I wouldn't be too worried about their well-being. They're already dead.
Yeah.
Kind of. Technically not. It's fine.
Paperwork hasn't been finalized yet.
As far as death is concerned, no.
That's mostly because they're dealing with a whole lot of shit.
Yeah. You're not dead because they haven't gotten round to you yet, okay? Wait your turn. Also, go do the thing you're supposed
Meanwhile,
to
you're
do.
useful, so... or you can be. Just very funny thinking about you arriving to the town and just getting, like, the finish of a tutorial, and then immediately you're pulled along for who knows how long.
It's a wonder anybody played this game, really.
Truly. It's especially funny to me because it's just, whatever she's saying, it has nothing to do with the rest of the game.
No.
Absolutely 0.
There might be some sort of mini game involved in like organizing who sits where at a particular dinner party or something. But it doesn't get you anything. It's not.
No.
It's just there's a random chance every time you return to the harbour she'll rope you into doing something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like a mini game of like, you know, the riddle of like that person cannot sit next to that person, but also only from that person, and then where sits person D, and then, you know.
There's a name for those kind of logic puzzles, and it's escaping me what they're called.
I've often heard Einstein's name attached to them for some reason. I don't know why.
Well, that's because there's like one particular puzzle that's attributed to him, but it's older than him. So can't really.
A lot of things are attributed to Einstein.
Yeah, that's because his name has sort of become ubiquitous with just smart people thing.
Right, okay, we're going to have to add in... Already my numbering system is going to have to be thrown out the window in favour of a 2.5 facial reconstruction. I've also decided to sort of storyboard this for some reason.
It's important.
I guess we have to design a plastic surgeon wizard.
Yes.
That's definitely at the harbour.
See, my idea was just at some point, Wine Aunt would notice your raggedy clothes and then go, "Oh God, darling, you can't be wearing those," and chucks you into a closet, and that's when the character creator happens.
I mean,
But I prefer the facial reconstruction.
Yeah.
Maybe both. We do the facial because it's like with a lot of RPGs, you can only really design your body at the start with like a little bit of color, and then you gain more stuff later. So it could be like, here's the facial reconstruction, and then you get clothes later on.
Yeah. Why not?
I mean,
I'm sure gives you clothes.
My brain is so firmly sort of caught in the groove of how can we make this awful that I came up with an actually kind of interesting idea, which was in that sort of closet scenario, you can sort of choose a color palette that your character associates, and then every piece of armor or equipment or whatever sort of in some way adheres to that color palette. So you could sort of, you know, the plume on the armored helmet or whatever matches your primary color that you chose or whatever. But my brain is so firmly sort of entrenched in this idea of let's make this awful that I immediately changed it to, no, it's not automatically that. You just can't pick up anything that doesn't have those colors. If it's blue and you chose red, nope, that's just got to stay on the floor.
No.
Oh, that's terrible.
Oh my god. Why?
The first option would be a lot easier to implement.
Yeah.
Because then you'd have to have something encoded in each of the items with not just other stats, but also the color range it's in.
Yeah, color is a stat of armor. And if it doesn't match yours...
Good
tough.
luck.
And you just end up with a fight with just like loot splashing around everywhere, and you can pick up like 1% of it.
Oh, wonderful.
What does Plastic Surgeon Wizard look like? I mean, they got like
Well,
a
we know
surgical
what's going
mask
to be
on.
covering their face.
Yeah, exactly. that works. How can we work from there? Is there a way of making those? No, not really. Is there a way of making like surgeon hat thing into a wizard hat? And not really.
Yeah, because it's just a scrub that's there to keep your. It's mostly there to keep your hair from going everywhere.
I mean, you could do it as like it's the same sort of thing. But my immediate thought was make it wizard, give it a big brim. But what if we just made it long?
Long.
Kind of works as like kind of like a bedtime cap thing.
You just woke them up and they had to go to surgery immediately.
They're very sleepy after doing your surgery.
Look, they wear their scrubs to bed. They're prepared for anything.
Oh yeah, true. They are a wizard after all.
God, wizard med school must be terrible.
I immediately thought about a comic that Chris made for me a long time ago by now, where we talked about like the worst surgery implements for some reason.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Was it during the Hitman playthrough?
No, it was not. It was as a
No.
result of the Dark ChibNetherlands podcast during Remnant.
Oh, it was, yes.
The worst surgery roleplay for some reason. I don't remember why.
I mean, you can go back and watch the Dark ChibNetherlands podcast if you want to during our Remnant playthrough.
But yeah, you made a comic of that for me, and that still makes me laugh. It's still so stupid. There it is.
Where it be? There it be. Oh, there. It turned up there. Hang on. And didn't open very big for some reason.
Bring your own knife. I think that's why it started.
Oh yeah, BYOK, yeah. I don't know if you can read that. There you go.
I think it might have been as a result of like a story one of us was telling about like a scalpel being left
yes.
inside someone's body after surgery and getting it back.
The terminology for something being left inside you after surgery is called. It says that the patient has retained it.
Oh yeah.
As though it were their fault.
You.
I've also given them multiple arms. I feel like that would be useful, you know?
Yeah, naturally.
Are they a Mimble that decided to go to wizard school?
I don't know, maybe.
They might be.
I feel like the consistency with which they do their job implies that they're not a normal wizard.
Yeah. Yeah, they might be a Mimble.
We've never really established what makes someone a wizard beyond just being entirely out of control academic.
Well, firstly, you need to pay the enrollment fees. That's about it, really.
Yeah, there's not like a lot of.
And it's clearly we've got a very diverse range of possible subject matter you could be studying.
Very diverse. There's no real oversight as to where you should or shouldn't be researching.
Clearly, that's how we had the apocalypse happen.
If there was like a rhyme or reason to it, then the apocalypse wouldn't have happened. You know?
Precisely. You would have thought safeguards would have been put in after that, but
of course not.
no, that would imply
Foresight.
You know, well, no, that would imply like accepting responsibility.
Oh yeah, that's it.
Which is the whole deal with their story, is that they're trying to cover up that they had anything to do with it. And if they didn't have anything to do with it, why would they have to change anything?
Exactly.
We've gone from silly game mechanic to social commentary, oh no.
It happens, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I like the professional looking storyboarding, by the way.
Yeah.
I mainly did it so that I didn't, like, it was contained enough that I didn't interfere with anyone else's part of the thing. So,
Oh,
but also if it's like a kind of piece by piece sort of. Normally when I do a draw through, I have the entire canvas and I can just spread out and do whatever. But I wanted to keep it contained.
hopefully it'll keep like your workload contained. You'll have to like minimize.
No, I just keep trying to draw the same thing over and over again in much too small a space. I will, if anything, take longer. But that's just me, so don't worry about it.
I'm not gonna take up any more space than my fairy corner.
I mean, theoretically, everybody has, on average, a quarter of the canvas that you can play with. You can paint things bigger if you fancy.
Yeah, no need though.
I mean, certainly today, there's, not a lot being done here. Chibi's done Bud Cat. We've got Cool Umbrella Cat.
Yeah, that's it. I haven't been drawing a lot these past few streams.
Well, we haven't really been doing prompts or anything. We've been talking more than we've been sort of drawing. So
Yeah, that's true. I'm terrible at multitasking, is what I'm getting from this.
that's fair. I did try to get better at multitasking, but I was busy with something else.
But
I'm
Thank you.
trying to think now. Of,
Don't we have a command for that?
Oh yeah, we do. Yeah, there you go.
Trying to think of like what prompts your journey, essentially. Like, yeah, you can explore now after Why Not is finally done with you, but like
it's just You've spent so long with Wine Aunt, you want to be anywhere but here.
I mean, that's probably the vibe.
I mean, yeah, but like, what prompts you to start exploring, like, the forest, for example, or
Yeah.
There was another one where we could go to earlier. We talked about that last stream and I've forgotten.
With the things and the stuff and all of that.
Yeah.
I can go back and open up the previous thing.
That was so cartoony
Hold
sounding.
on, I'll open up the pod.
No, I can find the Aggie thing. Here we are. Is last week's one. Cool. Okay, so we have the harbour and the caves that are sort of two places. From the harbour you can get to the wizards in the forest, and from the caves you can get to a bit of the abyss and the sort of first section of the Golden City, although you can't get in it properly.
Yeah.
Also, I forgot about this massive friend as well. A viaduct.
Mimic.
Shoe puff.
Shoe puff. Because
more things to do during long loading screens.
Mhm.
That was an auto scroller.
Thinking of, like, because you need something to prompt you from the harbor to go to you just showed it and I've already lost it again. The forest and the other thing.
Hang on, we're not.
The easy thing from what we've already established so far is just the mail system.
Yeah, there is that. The early game might just revolve around you doing jobs for the mail system.
Yeah, could be.
Could I not?
Because the
I
thing
can't
is, like,
copy and paste from canvases in different files. Bugger.
Because you also, like, you need to be prompted to go back to the caves, because as far as you know at this point, it's just the tutorial cave, and that's it. And you don't know that there's, or, like, maybe you've seen a little bit of it, but you don't know that if you go back to the caves, there is, like, an entire society there.
I'm slightly strange though it may be. I'm on board for the idea of, like, for the first part of the game, male lizard being your sort of, not your companion, your male lizard's companion. You know, like
Yeah,
just sort of doing jobs for them and going backwards and forwards and going back to the cave to stock up on bits and bobs and sort things out. And in doing so, you find out, oh yeah, there are other people living here, and there are a bunch of paths through the caves to different places, etc.
It's your early game, like, mission prompter of go with the male lizard, you know, and they essentially hire you, I guess, because you fight. So you might come across some early game
defend them.
enemies.
Oh, okay, that's good. You act as like the bodyguard for the male lizard.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't care if anybody else does. It's my stream. I like the lizard.
You like the lizard. Good.
You like the lizard? You eat the lizard? Or what was it?
What?
Like the burger, eat the burger?
Yes.
I'm glad I decided to sketch out the male lizard gecko, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Here is, for the sake of people who do not know what we're talking about. I've lost it already. I'm on the wrong page. Boom. There's my lizard friend, as originally drawn by Ragdoll and then drawn by Chibi. They're cool. And apparently also a very important character for the start of the game.
Yeah, apparently so. Didn't realize that.
This mirrors quite strongly normal game development. You end up making a thing, there's just a thing, and then partway through development it becomes much more important than all the other things that you thought, and things that you did think were important get thrown away or moved to the side. Game development's hectic like that.
If I remember correctly, the current design of Kirby was just a placeholder for them to make use of.
Yeah.
Until they could come up with the actual hero of the game, so that they had something to work with while they were doing, like, making the game run. And then they just got too attached to it, and it's just like, right, we're just keeping it this pink friend.
Oh
Placeholders.
God, they definitely just made it like a circle with a face in it with feet.
Yeah.
I'm just make a circle with feet. We'll work with that.
Easy, quick
it's just
sprite
something
to
you
implement.
hand off to the programmers to go. We're still working on character design, but here's something for you to placeholder to make sure that the physics works in this 2D thing. And everyone's just kind of like, no, we're just keeping it a circle with feet.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes,
Little cat. Oh my God, I'm sorry.
everyone wanted to speak at the same time. Help!
Yeah, I like Male Lizard because it's a good way to get you to all the places, but not get you too far in all the places.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah,
You're sort of tethered to them in a sense.
yeah, you're tethered to them and the post office in whatever area they bring you to, but it still gives you a sense of here's the areas. Here's some easy enemies for you to fight that aren't a rat that's the same level as you and for some reason infinitely strong. You know, this is the game.
Well, it also works as logically it makes sense that it wouldn't be going very far in, because just with how normal mail works, typically you've got the distribution center that sends it to the local areas, and then the local areas organize the stuff and then send it to the mail carriers who do the actual get to the individual houses.
Mm-hmm.
So you're just working with the distribution center guys.
Yeah.
You're just getting the stuff from the harbor that needs to go to the Golden City up to the Golden City, and then whoever works there can handle that.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need you delivering the mail here. Do you even know where this street is? No, go back.
You don't know anything. You don't even have the armor to get to this street.
Yeah.
How dare you? We got this guy for that. He has golden plate mill. Why? Don't ask. It's rude.
Got golden embellished eyebrows on their helmet. They're much more important than you.
If this was a cat, it would be a thumbnail to a really aesthetic painting.
So with the who?
I like
The
how
mouth.
you've decided that the fight with the rat deserves its own.
Yeah.
It's a very important thing.
I mean, technically, yeah, because it ends up it can be in the Fame and Fortune fight. We decided. Technically, it's important.
Also, I think isn't the reason it can level with you something to do with the fact that you can or can't? You get a choice as to whether you actually fight it or not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's just the later you fight it, the more powerful it is.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, Wynant is gonna rope you into doing it, and the more you procrastinate, the worse it's gonna be.
If you're smart, you do it immediately when she asks you to.
Yeah. If not, they are the uber boss of Fame and Fortunes.
Mm-hmm. But, it's at the end of, a 7-hour conversation with Wynand, and she is like, you know, by the way, I have this rat in my in my cellar. Could you take care of that? And you're just like, no, please get me away. Because she asked that, and then immediately is interrupted by male lizard of like, you know, I've got enough stuff. I've got stuff here. You want to come with? I'm going to this place. You can come along if you'd like. I see you found a sword. So, like, any reasonable person would say no to why not in that case scenario.
Okay, slight change then.
Yes, the question mark. Fight the rat?
Sorry, I'm listening to my bot and correcting my posture and having a stretch.
Good job.
Thank you, bot. I need to add more things that the bot says, because it can take any number of things to say at any interval. And I've only ever just added that one. I added such functionality to this, and it's just had that message for God knows how long now.
Yeah.
I also wanted to add a thing, which I stole from another stream, which is the ability for you guys to add a quote command. So every time I say something stupid, you can put it in the quote command, and then you can just go !quote, and it'll just give you a random one that you've put in there. I think
That's
be fun.
And we can constantly remind you of your mistakes.
Yeah. It's part of the fun of being a streamer. You guys have to hold me account for my absolute nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
Aiko.
So, I don't know how familiar everyone in the room is with the Dead by Daylight games, besides the dating sim that went with it.
You mean it's not a dating sim?
Well, they made a dating sim with some of the things. It's basically tag.
Ragdoll, I have been playing the dating sim on my streams, so...
Yes, but the dating sim is just based off of it. It's not the actual Dead by Daylight.
Yeah, I know.
So for some reason, Dragon Ball is making a Dragon Ball flavored of the same thing. So I was watching, but it's not like released yet. They're still doing a lot of stress tests, and they haven't figured out the balancing yet. So they're allowing people to play in like little bursts to do stress tests on the system and then figure out how to update things. So I was watching some people play last night, and they managed to get a group of 7 together. For a full game, you need 7 survivors, 1 attacker. And it's like, oh yeah, if all 7 of us are survivors, we'll just gang up on some poor unsuspecting attacker. And it's like, what do you mean gang up? It's not like we're exactly organized here, we're just a group of idiots. And it's like, yeah.
Sometimes life is just about being a group of idiots. And by sometimes I mean pretty much all the time for me.
Well, and I mean sometimes that works. Like, one of the things that trips up a lot of people who get like into real deep into the meta of whatever game here is someone just not paying any attention to the meta.
I sort of experienced that with my PhD. I sort of wandered into an area that I didn't really know, and my supervisor had been studying it for a while, and I read the sort of most recent thing that they'd done, and I picked up on something in it that I thought like, okay, that's what, you know, that's the linchpin of this whole thing, so I should probably work on that. And it was only after working on it for a while that I realized that wasn't something they'd considered. It just sort of happened as they were doing the actual research. And so I just ended up stumbling on the thing that worked because I didn't know I should have been focusing on something else. There's all this stuff that the people in the field are like, these are the structures that we understand and we are studying. And then I'm here going, that looks good. Pointing in the complete opposite direction. Is that a butterfly? You know.
Yeah.
And that was the first year of my PhD, and I was very productive. Because nobody had bothered to look at it like that before. I was like, yeah, I remember the conversation with my supervisor. I was like, you know this thing, this structure that you've got? And he's like, no. No, I don't know this thing. It's like, you made it. I didn't make this. I was like, you kind of did. We didn't realize we did it. So yeah, sometimes you just need fresh eyes.
And that's how you end up with the Pachirisu that beats up a whole bunch of competitive players.
Yeah. Yeah, I imagine Male Lizard like recruits you as you are like actively running out of Wine Aunt's door, like just trying to get away. And he's like, "Hey, I've got an excuse. I've got an excuse to let you leave. Come with me. We can do stuff."
They just run by and just ask you as they're running by. You can say yes in the middle of Wine Aunt trying to recruit you to fight this rat.
You just sit there and it's like, oh no. And then more minigame during transition scene as you're in the back of the car.
Yeah, that's just the beginning of the game. Doing a lot of postal sorting.
Well, I mean, you do have at least some RPGs out there that start out with just not much is going on, sort of establishing what the world is, and then they throw you into trying to attack and dethrone God, as it were.
Unfortunately, our idea of establishing what the world is making you deal with a lot of addresses.
Yeah, there's no world map. You just have to know what the map is based off the Postal Service.
The world map is just a long list of... It's like the Yellow Pages. It's just a bunch of addresses and contact details and stuff. And you have to scroll.
That would be an interesting way to sort of build, like, gain parts of the world map. Like, we've gone to a new area. Here's the basic address book.
Here's the postcode. That's... Postcode acquired.
This would be the worst game.
I was sort of thinking, like, oh, why would anyone buy this? Like, and the answer is people don't have to. This could have been just a game that just didn't sell. But I also quite like the idea that we actually put out a demo of like the middle of the game.
Yes.
Not mentioning any of this.
No. Not mentioning any of the bad stuff. Just good middle of the game where things are picking up and things are getting intriguing. The trailer looked really cinematic, okay?
Oh, wonderful. We spent almost all the budget on CGI trailers.
Which is funny because there's some games out there that explicitly ended up doing the opposite. So the first Bayonetta game, I believe, some of the cutscenes have your moving models going around and interacting with each other and talking. But some of them, it's semi-static, so like it'll show essentially just like the character there moving, and like some of the effects, like scarves and whatnot, might be blowing in the breeze, but the character themselves isn't moving, they're static. And some of them even have like a film reel type thing where it's like showing an image. And it's all artsy-fartsy stuff, and it's because they ran out of time and money for animations, so they just kind of went, fuck it.
Clever use of restrictive... the Hitman games did the same thing, the modern ones. The first game, which we played on stream, the first new one, it's confusing. Season 1, Linen Room. I'm just going to refer to that as the Linen Room game. That had fully animated cutscenes and dialogue, lip sync, all that sort of stuff. Second game, they realized they didn't really have the budget to keep doing this, so they just did that. They did sort of stills, with like, you know, maybe bits moving in the foreground or background, and just sort of artsy shots to make everything look nice, but just no animation, no lip sync, anything like that, because they just knew that would save a hell of a lot of money. And they also realised that wasn't the point of the game, you know? It's a puzzle game, ultimately, and the story, most people probably wouldn't even pay attention to the story. So they're like, okay, we can cut that back. Instead, we can spend that money animating things in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it worked.
Yes, it's cool. Smart cuts. I don't know if they
continued that in Bayonetta 2, because I've not watched through it, and 3 is coming out soon, so I have no idea what they've done with that, because it's not out yet. Yeah.
How dare you? How dare you not know things that haven't happened?
All I really know is they've got a new voice actress for Bayonetta in 3 because of scheduling conflicts.
Oh, that's annoying. Of all the reasons. I mean, it's at least a tame reason, you know?
Yeah, like, I mean, if there's going to be a reason why someone had to get a part was recast, I'd rather it be that than most of the other reasons, because sometimes, like, because that's like a reasonable thing. It's like, okay, we tried, but our schedules didn't line up. She's doing other things at the time, so we're going to just have someone else do the part. Versus some of the things you have now, where it's like, no, we're hiring someone else to do it because we are anti-voice actor union, and it's like, okay, so you're a bunch of assholes. Cool. Or if it's because we're not anti-voice actor union, it's just that this particular voice actor is not great to work with, just on a personal level. That's always not great.
Or because we want someone more famous doing it.
Yes.
That's a fun one.
Yes. Someone more famous who does not know how to voice.
Yes. We got a famous screen actor who has never voice acted before to replace this famous voice actor who is a professional voice actor.
Well, the fun thing is, I think Chris Pratt has voice acted before, but he was explicitly voice acting a character that was a generic everyman.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, that was the whole point of the character. He is so generic that no one can identify him.
I also like how you jump straight to Chris Pratt.
He
I mean,
like,
it is the most topical example of it at the moment.
Yeah. I was thinking partly of Kiefer Sutherland in Metal Gear Solid. But... Which that one had a story reason, though, to be fair.
Like,
but...
I wouldn't have a problem with Chris Pratt being Mario, other than, you know, I would love to hear actual voice actors, because, you know, cool voice actor jobs.
I mean, let Charles Martinet have a go. You know, the guy who's voiced Mario for the entire existence of Mario. That might be nice.
Yeah.
Just a
but,
thought.
like, I get it if, like, Chris Pratt didn't just sound like Chris Pratt.
Yeah.
In every role I've ever heard or seen him in.
If there was a clear idea behind it, then fair enough. But there doesn't appear to be an idea, it's just we got Chris Pratt.
If it, you know, like, if it was like, I mean, like, what I assume they're going with is, you know, the American Italian Mario coming from whatever the Mario equivalent of Brooklyn is to, you know, that kind of deal. I get it if he didn't sound like, you know, Mario, but then I'd still want something else than Chris Pratt.
I mean, then make him sound like Mario from the Mario movie. Like, that was what they were in that movie. They were American Italian plumbers.
Yeah, I think it's a bad sign when people are saying they could have done better, like the old Mario movie.
The famously awful Mario movie that Nintendo is desperately trying to get people to forget.
Yeah, that's a bad sign.
Yeah, but it is like, it was... I mean, I haven't seen it, but like, it's still like, you know, they had an idea about Mario.
Oh yeah, the old film, they had a lot of ideas. I don't think any of them were good, but they tried.
And it is mostly a shame because I think, like, it genuinely, you know, it looks like a good animated movie. It looks, you know, the animation looks pretty. The rest of the cast sounds pretty great. It's some voices I'm gonna have to get used to, but, you know, it's fine. But then there's just Chris Pratt, and it sticks out like a sore thumb. You know?
I have seen at least one person who's like, so who's going to just take this and edit in the Italian dub for Mario into the English?
I mean,
I follow an artist, KK Flipnote. Does lovely stuff, animations and things. But he's French, and so he saw the French trailer for it. And apparently the French voice actor for Mario is great. So we kind of got...
Yeah, I've got a couple of friends who are from Quebec, so French Canada. And yeah, they've seen both, and it's like, yeah, I'm just gonna go watch this movie in a theater that's putting it in French. And it's like, okay, glad you have that option.
One of the many downsides of not knowing a second language is I can't watch the Mario film in French. One of the downsides of only knowing English is I'm stuck with Chris Pratt. Whoa, what a time to be alive.
And
never before has man known such suffering.
Although, speaking of less upsetting voice actor changes, one of the important side characters in the Persona series had a voice actor change for the 5th game that came out a few years back. And it was completely understandable why it would need a new voice actor. I believe, like, in Japan, the original voice actor was older and had, like, retired, so it's like, gotta get a new one anyway.
Yeah.
And there was another reason for why in English it switched over, but I don't remember. But they ended up sort of incorporating that into the story a bit, where it's like, no, there's a reason why he sounds weird here at the start. There's something weird going on.
Yeah, like I say, in the case of Metal Gear Solid, I guess I don't really want to go into too much detail for reasons. But yeah, for the 5th game, they just sort of got rid of the voice actor who had been playing the main character. Well, not even the main character, who had been playing the main characters, plural, through the previous games. And replaced it with Kiefer Sutherland, who did a perfectly acceptable job, but it's just sort of like, what happened to the other guy? And there is a kind of reason in the game as to why that's the case, but no more of a reason. The reason is no more of a jump than the excuse of, it's clearly covered by the fact that the previous voice actor actually played multiple different main characters. The reason they give in the game as to why the main character has a different voice is not more extreme than that. Even if the multiple different characters are technically genetically similar genes. There's one word that loses all meaning when you start looking into Metal Gear Solid. It's genes. And brother.
Or we'll just have them wear overalls instead. No.
Oh no, they're wearing denim overalls. No.
So, after the harbor, once male lizard says, want a job, and you say, yes, please, get me out of here. Because then is when the story, goes.
Yeah.
Ways, but because I don't know what you're gonna draw next.
I'm kind of just giving an idea of sort of, I don't know, rough map sort of area as an indication, like, okay, from here you can sort of do little things with the male people delivering things around and sort of touching areas rather than going deeply into them. Yeah, so I'm just doing an aerial map idea just to sort of get an idea as to how it works.
This also sort of makes sense why you wouldn't be going into the deep forest or the floating city just yet, because if you're in a little literal mail truck, the places you're going to be able to get to are the areas, the outside areas of the forest where people live, the base of the Golden City, not into the ocean necessarily, but at least around the edges of it, and you drop it off, hand it over to the mer people who stick it in a waterproof case or something. I don't know. And to various little areas, which may include driving past the wizard tower, and it's like, what's that? And then you see the wizard tower slink off, and it's like, what is that?
You just see it move past you, and you're just like, what? Why does that move? Hello?
But you wouldn't be able to get deeper into the ocean via the mail carrier, deeper into the woods, or up to the floating city at all, unless later on they're like, right, okay, you seem to know what you're doing, time to put you onto air patrol. What's air patrol?
Do we have a surprise for you? Yeah.
God, now I'm just trying to figure out how they might get mail up to the floating city.
Canon.
Why is the answer always canon?
If in doubt, canon.
I mean, isn't that how they do it in Skyward Sword?
I don't know.
Haven't you got massive birds in Skyward? That would probably be more
no, I'm
sensible
thinking
idea.
Twilight Princess. Twilight Princess, there's a sky area you get to, and you get shot at it. Yeeted into the sky.
I mean, I assume that during this mail carrying, you'd start to pick up little quests of little stuff you can do in the areas. Actually, nothing too complicated and stuff, but just your begin our quests. I'm just trying to think. It's hard because, you know, it's not a linear game with all the exploring, but like what, you know, when do you get a hint of like seriousness? Of like beyond like, this is mail. Go
maybe you sort of have to do
game for 7 hours.
In order to get to the second part of the game, where you can actually start to stretch your wings, spread your wings, stretch your legs, leg your wings. You have to do like a thing in each place. So there's like a particular small quest that involves mail or doing something for somebody, delivering something in a, you know, what are we delivering? That might be an interesting question to ask. That might help give us an idea of stories and stuff. But once each of those things should in some way, or might in some way, give a hint as to the later story, and your character starts building up more and more information, and then eventually, like, once you've done all these things, you know, maybe your character, you know, you return to the post office and you're sorting things out, and your character goes, hey, I've been hearing a lot about all this sort of weird nonsense going on. Should I have drunk from that puddle? And that's maybe the catalyst. I did drink that soup. Is that bad? And the lizard's like, we need to get you to see some wizards right now.
I love the implication of that, because to the male lizard, it'd be like someone just suddenly going like, hey, I drank some petrol, should I do something about it?
Yeah, exactly.
I found some petrol on like a cavern floor. A disgusting cavern floor, and I drank it. Should I have done that? Like, male lizard is suddenly very concerned. Like, what?
Chibi, would you be kind enough to draw male lizard's face at that moment? I really want to see you draw that face.
Hold on. Let me see.
Trying to make that face as a lizard.
Yeah.
Be interesting.
Part of my brain is just really desperate to see Chibi draw that face, because it's just, I know it'll be good.
Let's see.
The worst case of what do you have in your mouth?
Yeah.
What do you have in your stomach?
As this all becomes like a cohesive story, it becomes more and more ridiculous that the main character does that.
Exactly. That is the catalyst for the second half of the game, is discovering that the character has been drinking floor soup. And been fine. And that's really weird.
God, this poor lizard. Just trying to help out by giving this stranger steady job, and they're going along drinking fuel.
The lower lip of disgust.
Something like that.
Wonderful.
I mean, that's the face I would make if someone admits me to drinking petrol. Just...
Yes.
All of the faces you've been doing was great, though.
That's such... Just, like, having Nick, like, over to the side, we've got Chris, who's drawn Happy Little Lizard, who's, like, going, oh yeah, come on, and then this.
Come join me. Yeah, and it moves on to this. Yeah, we're gonna have to find a wizard who can speak to you and maybe find you a new job.
It has
maybe find you a
new vibes.
I don't trust you with these packages anymore.
Listen, this is the face of someone who just admitted to that you drank petrol. They're equally parts concerned and absolutely disgusted.
Oh, okay. This is an aside. This is something that popped into my head during the week, and is very much absolutely useless to the story, but also something that I feel like only my brain would have bothered coming up with. So I feel like I need to share it. So in like older games, typically ones that have like a world map. We've talked about this before. The world map is just like a rectangle, and it loops on the sides. So you head north, you come out the bottom of the map. You go all the way left, you come out the right. And that's not how globes work. Because, yeah, if you keep traveling east, you'll eventually come out from the west side. But north and south don't work like that. You can't keep traveling north and then suddenly you're at the South Pole. You will hit the North Pole, and then from that point... Well, yeah, but at that point you stop going north. Before you get to the South Pole, you have to start heading south. And so the geometry is fundamentally different, and what you end up with the flat rectangular map that loops on the sides is you end up with a torus, a donut. So most like old JRPG worlds are donuts, topologically speaking. But one thing I sort of realized, I kind of imagined this viaduct system sort of sprawling around this thing, and I suddenly remembered there's a thing in maths called the Euler Characteristic, which is that if you have a surface, which is that basically you draw a whole bunch of lines around that connect together and they make shapes. Basically, you put a pattern on the surface of a thing. So you put a pattern on the surface of a sphere, or on the surface of a donut, or whatever. It doesn't matter what pattern you've done. If you take all of the corners of the shapes, if you count how many there are, all the corners, you add it to the number of faces and subtract the number of edges, you will end up with a number, and that number will be the same regardless of what pattern you've done, which is called the Euler characteristic of the surface. And some different surfaces have different characteristics. In particular, I think a sphere has a characteristic of 2, off the top of my head. So if you were just to draw a bunch of shapes on a sphere and then count the corners and faces and edges and do that calculation, you'll end up with 2. But a donut has a different number, has 0. And I'm thinking, did people mapping out the viaduct on this planet cause them to realize they're living on a donut? Because the number adds up to 0, not 2. So what made me think of this was you getting annoyed at the flat Earth thing. And I was like, maybe these people were like the established status quo is we live on a globe, but then they mapped out the viaduct and realized, wait, no, hang on, this doesn't work. This should add up to 2. It doesn't. It adds up to 0. We live on a donut. Again, that has absolutely nothing to do with any of the story. I just thought it was an idea I wanted to share.
Well, and considering that we probably don't have a world map where you'd go across the entire world.
Yeah, ours is quite contained.
It's not exactly relevant, but yeah, that is a funny thing to think about.
Sorry, I've just looked back down at the mail lizard. Yeah, that is the catalyst for Act 2. That face.
That face. This entire time they've just, been generic smile, whatever, and then it zooms in on their face as you admit it.
You drank the fuel. It zooms in, slowly zooms in on the face again. You drank the fuel, and then boom, Act 2.
Yeah. There's definitely like a little title scream for Act 2 that just can't.
So yeah, this is the basic storyboard so far. We got the weird rumblings of conversations between life and death in hazy not life, not living, not dying, limbo. You wake up in the caves and you try and work out how things work, and Buff Wizard gives you a hand by showing you how to punch. You promptly punch him and he instigates a fight because you punched him. You lose so badly that somebody has to reconstruct your face in the form of a character creator. And you eventually make your way out of the tutorial cave to find a van conspicuously parked outside with a male lizard who's like, hey, do you want a lift? Go into the harbour. You have some lovely conversations and an awful lot of sorting to do along the way. But you eventually arrive, and just as male lizard is showing you, or is going to tell you where you can find something useful, you get dragged by the arm by this stranger drinking wine, and given a guided tour of all of their relatives' houses. Maybe also some new clothes, I don't know. This culminates in them asking you to kill a rat in their basement, but at that point you want to do anything but, so you run away. And you find Male Lizard again, who knows what you're in for, and so has been kind of following you around and going, I can get them out of this. And so they invite you to help them with their deliveries. And so you go around these places and deliveries. You get to go to the outskirts of the forest, meet some wizardy people in the fields, go to parts of the caves and the entrance to the Golden City and maybe some of the ocean and such. Just delivering bits and pieces here and there and learning things, and I guess we'll talk more about that next time. Mm-hmm. And then at some point, after discovering that these red pools are in some way significant and magical and strange, you divulge the information that you have been drinking them. And boom, Act 2.
Act 2, it's that face.
Yeah.
You drank the fuel. I also love that with this we've decided that there are like hard cuts with like Act 1, Act 2, and Act.
It's a silent move.
I guess maybe we've decided that, or maybe this is the only time it happens.
Even better.
The only card is Act 2. Terrible error. The arrows, that's what's important.
I'm not just thinking you find like a little... Later in the game you can find like a little card of the Act 2 title splash in Fame and Fortune's shop. What? That they just shoved it in your face.
Or they bought the Act cards and you only get to see a few of them.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they've got all but Act 2.
Amazing.
And you just see the tops of some of them, and they cover them up like spoilers.
Yes.
Cool. That's. I think we're making progress to tying things together, and I for one am very glad that Male Lizard is now a very important character for the first part of this story.
Yes.
If prior to this conversation, if you had asked me which of the characters we have created would become the pivotal character for Act 1, it would have been a while before I ended up on Male Lizard. Probably not the last.
No, not the last, because we did establish that, you know, you get there with the mill van previously.
Like, they're probably above the Cult of the Duck, you know?
Yeah.
But...
still not up there.
Yeah, this is fun. Should I spin wheels if people want it, or are we just quite happily draw throwing now? There's no harm in having prompts, but
I think at this point we're just sort of connecting the spaghetti, but if people want a wheel,
just to show it.
Yeah. Like I say, there's no harm in having it. You don't have to pay attention. You never had to in the first place, but doubly so now.
Maybe something cool will come out of it.
Yeah,
you know?
maybe we'll think, oh, this fits perfectly with what we're thinking about, like what we're delivering or something, you know. Wheels transition. Unfortunately, we had items last time, which is that would have been good for deliveries. But hey, spin.
And we can still work with items.
Oh yeah, the prompts are always still there. You don't have to, you know. But again, lore.
Well, that works.
It kind of works, yeah. The story of what's actually happening in each place and why you're delivering things. Lore. How far back does lore stretch?
As far as you want to.
You know, if you have to deliver a spanner to a house, does the fact that the pipe is leaking count as lore? It's a past event that is significant to current events.
Technically, implied lore.
Implied lore. But yes, so Oobs has Viaduct. Everybody gets the caves. Everybody writes stories about the Male Lizard. I get Floating City. Chibi has Harbour, so we can flesh out those gangsters. Dark gets Wizard Nonsense. Christy has The Abyss, which is a good one, actually, because we've got a lot of little civilizations of fish people down there. And they need stories. They don't need stories, but it's nice to have them. Also, I want to see Christy draw fun fish people, even though they're probably very busy drawing mushrooms. Ragdoll gets...
fish.
Mushroom fish. Who said the two can't be combined? Ragdoll has Golden City. Plamps has Forest. Lewis has Limbo. Kiro has the Earth, or the planet. The world. Kiro, write the lore of the world. Do it.
No biggie, you can do that, right?
It's fine.
Got a little task for you.
Yeah, just got a little errand.
I do
Just,
like...
just don't drink the petrol on the way.
Yes.
I mean, I do like the implication of, like, male lizard just delivers to, you know, the mafia. They, you know, it had the appropriate... It had the stamps, it had the things, it had the right address.
They are customers. They're customers like everyone else.
Doing their job.
Yeah. What they
Whatever
do...
it contains doesn't matter to them.
Yeah. We know that they run their various machines on the floor soup, which is red and liquid. So the fact that this box is slightly red and liquidy is fine.
They're not part of customs, you know? That's not their job.
That's not we're just delivery. It's fine. Professional delivery with a smile. That smile in particular. I'm glad I asked you to draw that out. I felt bad throwing that on you. It's like, I really wanted you to draw that, but I'm very pleased I did.
It's a good face.
We've also got this friend up here eating popcorn.
Yeah.
Is that what they're doing?
Yeah.
That mushroom I talked about looked like popcorn to me.
Fun.
Popcorn mushroom. Pop cap mushroom. There's something there. That's not an IKEA joke though. Again, that's a whiff of a trademark or something. But yeah, there we go. But I think that's a good time. We did good things.
We did it.
Yeah.
We did part of it. So yay.
No, we did all of it. That's it. End of game one. Let's wait till the sequel to.
The last thing you see in the first game is that face.
Yeah, there was a miscommunication. It was supposed to be a multiple disc game, but unfortunately they just sold the discs separately. Something Final Fantasy VII remake. So yeah, this was fun. This is a good time. We come up with stuff. We did doodles. It was great, grand idea, story. Hopefully this makes sense when we come back to them next week.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Yeah. So, as for next week, we have streams happening, believe it or not. That says the Wrath of Malachi. That's not happening. We finished that game. Instead, we'll be playing another little game, which probably, I'm going to hazard a guess and say probably won't even last the whole stream. So I'll probably be playing 2 games.
Ooh, 2 games. For the price of 1.
For the price of 1, which is nothing.
Yay!
2 times 0 is 0, turns out. But yeah, we're playing the little horror-themed game. So none of them are horror games. I don't play horror games. They're horror-themed games. They're much more fun. Yeah, and then Wednesday we'll be carrying on probably the second game. It'd be weird if we carried on the first one. we do the first game, we finish it, start a second one, and then the next day we go back to the first one. And then Saturday we've got Zambles, hopefully with Kiro this time, it'll be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Sunday, back to this. Back to the Via grind. Although we're on Act 2 now. Well, kind of. We're still talking about maybe deliveries, giving us an idea of the later story and stuff like that. But we certainly know how Act 1 ends. So
we do. Now it's working backwards and forwards.
Exactly.
Both.
We're going to pincer in on this story. Yeah. Thank you for coming along. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, fun times.
Thanks for doing all the work.
We're chatting. There's no work. It's fun. Fun with friends, chatting, having ideas. Yeah, Kira hopes to join. Yeah. So yeah, that's the end of the stream. Thank you for coming along, everybody. Have a lovely week, or for 'tis a new week ahead of us. Yeah. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.